Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Tanks with the mighty Jingles. It's kind of rare these days, and this has been true for a couple of years at least, to get a World of Tanks match that lasts longer than 8 minutes. Usually one side has been utterly crushed long before that. And both of the battles that you're going to be watching today don't even last 8 minutes, which is why you're watching two of them. I have to make up the time somehow. Our first match features a Rorik 78 here, in the French Tier 7 premium light tank, the AMX 1357. It's a Tier 8 match on the Abbey map, and as the name of the tank would suggest, it's armed with a 57mm gun. This is a ridiculously low caliber gun for a Tier 7 tank of any description, but the gun on the AMX 1357, while it is low caliber and does trifling amounts of damage per hit, does feature a large ammunition capacity between reloads. It is of course an autoloader and is capable of pumping out its load of 8 shots very, very quickly and then reloading the drum equally quickly, which is great because when you're in a tank as badly armoured as the AMX 1357 with the low hit point pool of the AMX 1357, you really don't want to be hanging around waiting to get through those shots and inviting return fire. Check out what a Rorik is doing here. This is a great spot that he's managed to get to, good and early. He's already racking up some spotting damage. Oh, got spotted while moving to the next bush. Fortunately, there's a very convenient rock here for him to hide behind while he waits to go undetected. And now should be good. And he's gotten a kill. Okay, good news, bad news situation. The enemy Cherie has managed to catch him with nowhere to hide. That's bad news for him. But it's equally bad news for the Cherie, because with the remaining 7 shots in the autoloader, he was able to make that Cherie seriously regret his hasty decision to push forward around that rock there in order to try to finish off the little Frenchman. And he's already reloaded the drum. There's another victim. I'm not entirely sure. Oh, this could be a kill. The downside of this gun is that it loads faster than it aims. So if you do want to be accurate at range, you really do need to be in concealment, because you have to wait for that aiming reticle to close in to its most accurate, which takes way longer than it does to actually cycle the shots in the drum. And that's why you really need to be in concealment, or at the very least have other tanks much more preoccupied with targets that aren't you, because if you're spotted while you're taking your time to aim and squeeze off all 8 of those shots accurately, you're inviting return fire. And the AMX 1357 really does not like being shot at. That doesn't mean that you cannot just fire off each shot in the drum as soon as it reloads. It just means that if you're trying to do it from range, you're probably going to miss more often than you're going to hit. Where the 1357 really excels, where you're able to take full advantage of that extremely quick intra-clip reload, is at point-blank range, like this, where it's very difficult to miss. Beautiful drive-by there, fully occupied the attention of the defending enemy tanks, allowing his allies to sweep in and catch them completely off guard. And they in turn, of course, were returning the favour for him, occupying the attention of the defending enemy tanks, allowing him to clean up a couple of kills in the process. And any second now, and he's fully reloaded again. People often fail to take the 1357 seriously because the gun only does 90 damage per hit, but it fires 8 shots, which means it has a theoretical average damage output of 720 damage per clip, and it reloads that clip very, very quickly, as you can see. The tank, of course, is at its best when other people are not shooting at it, so it's a great backup and support tank for the fast mediums on the team. Of course, the other occasion when it's acceptable to squeeze off those shots as quickly as they reload without bothering to aim is when you're trying to finish off an extremely low health enemy and you really want volume of fire rather than accuracy. That works too. And the ammunition is exceptionally cheap, so you don't need to worry about failing to make a profit, particularly since this is a premium Tier 7 light tank. The only real downside to the AMX 1357, aside from its terrible armour and low hit point pool, which is offset by its excellent camo rating and exceptional mobility, is its low ammunition count, and this is something that is fairly common to a lot of the French autoloaders. The 1357 only carries enough ammunition for 7 reloads. So you really don't want the match to drag on too long when you're in this tank. Fortunately for Auroric, this match isn't even 5 minutes old, and they've already won. So, blink and you would have missed that battle. Auroric 78 in the AMX 1357, a tank that, much like the battle that Auroric just played, is short, sharp, and to the point. So, moving on to our second battle of the day, which is almost as short, but not quite. Here in a Tier 8 standard battle on the Serene Coast map, this is Doug DeMuro, and the tank that he's driving probably needs no introduction. This is, of course, the legendary Tier 8 premium Chinese medium tank, the Type 59. The very first World of Tanks video I ever did, in fact the very first YouTube video I ever did, on the 16th of June 2012, was me, in the Type 59. That video is just over 9 years old, and the remarkable thing about that video certainly wasn't the video itself, it's utterly terrible, but I was the only Type 59 in that battle, which is kind of weird on a number of levels because at the time the servers were infested with Type 59s. Being the only Type 59 in a match 9 years ago was an extremely rare occurrence. And yet 9 years later, when you haven't actually been able to get one outside of a loot box or winning a special competition with the Type 59 as a prize, since the 16th of January 2012 when they were removed from sale, there are 2 of them in this match. But I'm going to say something that might be a little controversial. Despite the legendary status of this tank, it's not actually that good. No, settle down. I'm not saying it's a bad tank. It's not. It's a perfectly reasonable Tier 8 medium tank. In fact, in many ways, it's exactly what a Tier 8 medium tank should be. It is far from overpowered. I mean, the mobility is good, the power to weight ratio is good. The hull armour is nothing special. It's got a strong turret, and the gun handling isn't bad, but the accuracy, the DPM, and the penetration is pretty bad. Also, it has notoriously weak modules, particularly the engine, fuel tank, and ammo rack. This tank is constantly bursting into flame or just outright exploding whenever it gets hit. So why was everybody going crazy for the Type 59? Well, it was because everybody had one. And it has preferential matchmaking. You'll never get into a Tier 10 battle in this machine, and most of your matches you're going to be top tier at Tier 8. But that still doesn't explain why it was so popular. I mean, it's a perfectly reasonable Tier 8 medium. The popularity of the Type 59 wasn't really anything to do with its stats or performance, which were perfectly reasonable, and it has in fact been nerfed since it was first introduced. The popularity of the Type 59, and this sounds weird but it's absolutely true, was because of the popularity of the Type 59. Everybody had one, so you had to have one. And because of its limited matchmaking spread, it could only ever be in a Tier 8 or 9 battle, and most of the time it was a Tier 8 battle where it was top tier. It was not unusual to see all of the medium tanks on each team were Type 59s. The matchmaker just didn't know what to do with them. There were simply too many people playing Type 59s. And what tended to happen was that everybody on the team who was in a Type 59 tended to stick together with all of the other people on the team who were in Type 59s, and thus the legend of the Type 59 Wolf Pack was born. It didn't really matter how mediocre the tank was, when you were being attacked by 5 of them, you stood no chance. So the Type 59 was removed from sale. And it's kind of ironic that the tank was removed from sale for 2 reasons really. One, because it was so popular and the matchmaker just couldn't handle the sheer number of people who were playing them, and 2, the people who were playing them were doing something that, well, is often sadly lacking in World of Tanks and something that wargaming really should be encouraging. They were using teamwork. And obviously we can't have that in World of Tanks, at least not until Wargaming figure out a way of monetising it, and so the Type 59 was removed from sale. Yeah. But like I said, it's not an amazing tank. It's certainly not bad. It has, well, better mobility than a Panther, that's for sure. And it's pretty good at drawing. In fact, it's not that good at long-range work at all. The gun just isn't accurate enough, and the standard ammunition doesn't have enough penetration. But when you get this thing up close and personal, it's got the mobility, and if you can get close enough so that an enemy cannot aim down into your hull and is forced to shoot at your turret, well, the turret is very good. So you can imagine what a wolf pack of 5 or 6 of these things were like when they got close enough to overwhelm you. These machines were definitely having an influence on the way battles played out. Heavy tanks in particular would shit a brick when they saw 5 Type 59s on the enemy team. Suddenly the heavies wouldn't go anywhere without backup. I mean, you could argue that they don't do that anyway now, even without hordes of Type 59s, but it was absolutely true 9 years ago. Fast forward 9 years, and despite the fact that Doug is not driving a particularly great tank, I mean, it's certainly not a bad tank, but there's nothing overpowered about it, he's been doing remarkably well. 3,000 damage, 5 kills. He's asking the team not to fully cap out. He wants the kills, which is not an unreasonable request, and it certainly doesn't hurt to ask, but your team are under no obligation to let you get a top gun at the expense of possibly throwing the match by failing to cap out. However, they do appear to be pretty confident, and they probably should be. They do outnumber the surviving enemy tanks 5-1. So the MT-25, oh, there's the IS. But the MT-25 has left the cap circle, which should, hopefully, give Doug here, and the rest of his team, of course, the opportunity to get the 2 surviving enemy tanks, and possibly for Doug to get his top gun. He's absolutely dominating in these circumstances, of course. He gets close enough that the enemy cannot actually depress the gun low enough to hit anything other than his turret, and his turret is very, very tough. The friendly VK, of course, is staying inside the cap circle, and that's understandable. He's too far away to take any direct part in the fight to knock out these last 2 enemy tanks. We don't know how much health he has remaining. He doesn't want to die unless he has to, and he doesn't have to. Instead, he's going for the capture point. And the MT-25, very generously, leaving the cap circle when he did give the rest of the team plenty of time to finish off the last 2 enemies. The fact that they were only able to get 1, well, that's not the VK's problem. And Doug probably isn't going to be complaining too much because, well, he did get his ace tanker, steel wall, high caliber and top gun out of it with just over 4,000 damage done and 1,600 base experience. In the Type 59, a tank that you really don't see very much anymore. Well, of course you don't, Jingles. It hasn't been available for sale for 9 years. Well, yeah, but when they removed it from sale, all the people who own Type 59s didn't suddenly not own Type 59s. I suspect the reason is that all those people that did own Type 59s just don't play World of Tanks anymore. But Doug still does. And of course it's a Tier 8 premium tank, so even though he went through 9 rounds of gold ammunition, which isn't a huge amount, but it's still gold ammunition and that shit's expensive, but because the Type 59's a Tier 8 premium, he still managed to make a fairly healthy profit. In fact, he made enough of a profit that he would have still made a profit even if he hadn't been running a premium account as well. That's just what Tier 8 premiums are for, generating cash. So, thank you to Doug in the Type 59 and Aurorik in the AMX 1357. I hope you enjoyed both of their extremely quick, but, well, I thought extremely well-played battles. And as always, take care, stay safe, and I'll catch you next time.